Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and you're watching This Week in MTG Finance. As always, before we get started, I want to kick things off by thanking MTG Stocks for allowing us to use graphical information for the purposes of this video. So we're going to kick things off with the top 5 cards that have increased percentage-wise since last week, and we're going to start right here with Chain of Vapor, specifically the Commander 2016 version. So the card's currently valued around $9.25, and it's up a whopping 125% since last week. The card appears in a lot of legacy and vintage decks, and it's currently getting a lot of attention in those formats. Of note, the Onslaught version is priced under $4, so if you don't mind the older art, then that would definitely be a better pickup if you're considering building one of these decks. That said, the Commander 2016 version would have had a relatively low printing, it's an alternate art, and a newer style border frame, which much people prefer. So it's no wonder that the card has gone up to $9.25 this week. And in the number 4 slot, we have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, printed in War of the Spark. Card's currently valued around $7, and it's up a healthy 127% this week. All right, let's talk about this card. So a few of the cards on the list again this week are a result of combo decks that work with Thassa's Oracle. And Jace is one of those sort of excellent backup plans or alternate win cons in a Thassa's Oracle combo deck. And especially in something like Pioneer. I mean, we don't have Labman in Pioneer, so really our go-tos are, Thassa's Oracle and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. And Jace is just one of those, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So, since, like I said, it's one of our only other options in Pioneer, if we're building a Thassa's Oracle combo deck, it's likely that we're going to see this card sort of continue to creep up in value. All right, and in the number 3 slot, we have Crystal Shard printed in Mirrodin, currently valued around $5, and it's up 160% this week. It's been on an increase since about the middle of 2018, just kind of slow and steady sort of commander demand, but it's seen its most recent jumps over the course of the last couple of weeks, going from the $3 mark to its current value of $5. All right, in the number 2 slot this week, we have Brain Freeze printed in Scourge, currently valued around $7.25. And this card is up a mind-boggling 298% since last week. So the reason for that is a Brain Freeze combos with Underworld Breach from the new THEROS set. And this is starting to make an impact on the legacy format. All right, and the big winner this week is Inverter of Truth from Oath of the Gatewatch. This card is up an astronomical 656%. And why is that, you ask? That's right, it combos with Thassa's Oracle. So for a paltry 4 mana, 2 black and 2, we get a 6/6 flyer, but more importantly, when Inverter of Truth enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your library face down, then shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library. So of course this combos with Thassa's Oracle to just outright win the game, but it also works handily with Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, which was another one on our list this week. It's not the most effective card to be using with Thassa's Oracle, or Jace for that matter. However, it's one of the few cards that does work in Pioneer, and it slots well into the Dimir control type strategy that it's currently being utilized in. All right, and before we get to cards I'm investing in this week, as always, if you're a subscriber, you know I want to thank you for being here. We really appreciate your support. And if not, now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We post at least 2 videos every week. The first one I have for you guys this week is Drown in the Loch from Throne of Eldraine, currently sitting around $1.30, and it has completely bottomed out, and we're actually starting to see an increase in coming up off of the bottom. So keep in mind, guys, Throne of Eldraine will not be rotating out at the next rotation in the fall of this year, which means a spell like this is going to be utilized in Standard for a very long time. Now is definitely the time to be picking these up and making sure you have at least your playset, but a short-term investment at $1.30 is an excellent opportunity here as well. All right, up next and following the same logic as a Drown in the Loch is Mystical Dispute, also printed in Throne of Eldraine, currently sitting around $2.75. And sort of ever since people realized that this is a really good counterspell, you haven't really been able to get it for under $2, and that is not going to be changing. Again, same logic as Drown in the Loch. Throne of Eldraine's not rotating. This is currently the best, or definitely one of the best counterspells in Standard for sure. But it's making appearances in other formats, things like Pioneer and even Modern as well. So, especially with all the decks that are kind of being tested right now, there's a lot of sort of Dimir control and Esper type control decks running around in Standard with with Ashiok and things like that. So Mystical Dispute is basically a 1-mana answer to those decks. So definitely a great pickup at $2.75. Card's going to be in Standard for at least another year and a bit. So you're never going to find it cheaper than this. Graph's on a continual sort of upswing, so definitely now's the time to get your playset. But again, a short-term investment at these prices is also a great option. Okay, up next I have 3 of the Demigods from Theros Beyond Death, specifically Callaphe, Daxos, and Annex. Now, before we get into this conversation, keep in mind that this is an long-term play. Like, we're talking really long-term. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before we really see any sort of major upswing on these cards. And you should be able to find them, in the 25-cent, whatever, 25-50-cent bin at your local game store. So for those prices, for those 3, like I said, Callaphe, Daxos, and Annex, I would definitely be picking up a bunch of these and just kind of socking them away in a box somewhere, put it in your closet, and forget about them, and bring them out in a few years. These are all $2-3 cards in a few years because, they're going to get a lot of commander love. Like, I put this right away in my Zur deck. There was no question this was going in my Zur Stacks commander deck. So, and Daxos has some potential to be used in whatever sort of sister-brother decks that, people brew up in the future. And then Annex has a lot of potential with things like, the original Perforos from the original Theros set. So, and again, just all 3 slot well into commander decks in these colors. So, picking them up for a quarter, socking them away, excellent sort of long-term investment. Okay, and before I get to the last card that's on my radar this week, I wanted to ask you guys for a favor. At the end of this video, I'm going to be putting a poll up regarding the future of this segment this week in MTG Finance. Your input is valuable to me as subscribers, so please take 30 seconds of your time and answer the question. It would greatly help me out. Okay. All right, so the last one I'm looking at this week is a Nyx Lotus from Theros Beyond Death. Currently, we're sitting around $5. I think this card is pretty much bottoming out. It might have a little bit more downside. Depends how much more of this set kind of gets opened by all the mass box openers and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think that this is going to be the #1 rare, if not the #1, definitely, sort of top 1 or 2 rares ultimately from this set. Nyx Lotus is going to be extremely effective in Commander, and it's going to be widely used for years to come in Commander. So picking these up around this price, I really don't think it's going to get much cheaper than that. Like I said, might drop another 50 cents, even up to a maximum, say, of $1. But I think sort of down the road, this card is, a $10 to $20 sort of commander card. We're talking a few years out, of course, but once we fire through the supply of Theros Beyond Death. But this is definitely a card that has a lot of potential, will get a lot of use in commander, and definitely has a lot of upside from here. All right, and as mentioned, I would really appreciate some input from you guys, the subscribers of this channel, regarding this segment this week in MTG Finance. I'd like to first say that this is my favorite segment to do. I really enjoy doing this show, and I know you guys really appreciate this show as well. Many of you come to the channel specifically for this week in MTG Finance, and I want you to know that this is not going to be going anywhere. But what I would like to do is make some what I would consider to be improvements to the show. So I've always tried to aim for sort of a 10 to 15 minute segment. I've felt in the past that that was sort of a good amount of time. where you guys could sort of take in the show. You know, it's not going to take up too much of your day, but at the same time, I can relay a bunch of great information over what has happened the last week or so in MTG Finance. What I've considered doing is increasing the length of the show, and where I need your guys' help is I want to know if that's something you would look forward to or something that you would want. So I'm going to be putting a poll up in the top right corner of your screen. You should see it appear as a little info card. If you could click on that, then a poll should appear and you can answer the question. And the question is, would you like This Week in MTG Finance to be longer? And by longer, I mean we would include, as you probably noticed, I've been sort of floating a trial balloon with having sort of the biggest increase in cards over the last week appear at the front of the show. And what I would like to do is sort of add, you know, some of the biggest losers, maybe an outlook at formats as a whole, sort of modern, you know, pioneer, standard, that type of thing. So this would definitely increase the length of the show, probably to more the 15 to 20 minute range, even possibly as high as 25 minutes. What I'm asking from you guys is that something that you would want? And if so, please let me know by answering the poll. All right, as always, thank you for watching the show. I really appreciate your guys' support, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.